The scratching started before the door finished closing. 3 quick scrapes, a pause, then one long drag like a fingernail begging wood to listen. I pressed my ear to the panel and whispered, "Simone, baby, it's Mama." The sound answered me, weak but real, from somewhere inside my daughter's perfect house. Behind the iron gate, a security guard watched from his glass booth. His eyes didn't go to my face first. They went to my shirt, to the stitched name of the hospital janitorial crew, to my rubber-soled shoes. He clicked his mic like he was swatting a fly. "Ma'am, step away from that home." His voice boomed through a speaker. "You're not on the resident list." He said it like a verdict, like paper mattered more than blood. The street was silent, except for sprinklers ticking on manicured lawns. "I'm her mother," I said, keeping my voice low. I couldn't reach my daughter for a week. My phone was raised in my hand like a witness. And I just heard scratching from inside. He let out a slow laugh that carried no humor. "Probably a pet," he said, "or pipes." Then his thumb hit a red button. "We've got a trespasser at 14 Hawthorne. It's possible scam." A scam, like motherhood, was a hustle when it wore a black face and a cleaning uniform. I stared at the curtains drawn tight, at the garage door shut, at the stillness that didn't belong to Simone. My daughter loved light. She loved noise. The scratching came again. Not pipes, not a cat. It was frantic, human, and fading. My knees went soft with the truth. A patrol car rolled up, smooth as a threat. A young officer stepped out, hand near his belt, eyes already narrowed. He didn't ask my name. He asked, "What are you doing here?" The way you ask a stain why it's on the carpet. "I'm here for Dr. Simone Brooks," I said. "She lives in that house." I pointed. She hasn't answered. She hasn't gone to work. And I heard scratching. He looked where I pointed, then back at me. His gaze dropped to my mop key ring clipped at my hip. His shoulders tightened like he'd found his story. "Ma'am, do you have permission to be on the property?" "I have a key," I said. The words tasted like surrender and fight at the same time. I reached into my bag, slow, careful, like I was handling glass. Metal brushed my fingers. "Don't," he snapped. "Hands where I can see them." If a spare key could turn into a gun. The guard watched, pleased, like he'd ordered this moment. The scratching hit again, loud enough to make the officer pause. A scrape, a soft thud, then silence. His eyes flicked toward the door. For a breath, he believed his own ears. Then the guard spoke loudly into the speaker, feeding him a script. "She's trying to force entry. We had packaged thieves last month. Same look, same skin, same assumption." The officer's face hardened. "Ma'am, if you don't step back, you'll be detained." My stomach tightened with something old and bitter. In this country, detain is what they call humiliation when it's dressed in procedure. My name is Loretta Brooks, T61. I scrub hospital floors at night because my pension got cut in half and my landlord doesn't accept pride. I'm also the reason 3 missing girls were found alive in 2008, but my resume wasn't on his clipboard. "I'm not leaving," I said. My voice stayed steady because that's how you survive. "I am telling you, there is someone inside that house." He grabbed my arm. Not cruel, just sure he could. He spun me toward the hood of the patrol car. Cold metal kissed my palms. "If my child dies in there," I said, "you're going to hear that scratching in your sleep." He hesitated. Then cuffs clicked around my wrists. A clean, sharp sound. A public lesson. The guard's booth window reflected my face back at me. A black woman in a blue shirt, bound at the edge of somebody else's comfort. The street watched through blinds. No one stepped out. Silence is easy when it isn't your blood. That was the moment Officer Mallory asked me, almost under his breath, "You said Dr. Simone Brooks." "Yes." His voice shifted. "My mom, she's a nurse at Northgate." He swallowed. "She talks about Dr. Brooks." The guard cut in fast. "Officer, she's playing you." Mallory glanced at the booth, then back at me. "I need ID," he said, but it wasn't a threat now. It was a lifeline he could legally grab. I nodded toward my purse. In my wallet, I said, "Back sleeve." He opened it and pulled out my driver's license. Then his fingers hit the second card. Faded plastic, old seal. His eyes widened. Metro Police Department. Detective Loretta Brooks, retired. My photo from 20 years ago stared up like a ghost. The guard's smile collapsed. Mallory's mouth opened, then closed. "Ma'am," he said, softer, "why didn't you tell me?" "Because you weren't listening," I answered. "Because I shouldn't have to flash my past just to make my fear count." A sergeant arrived, older, heavier, with a face carved by skepticism. He took one look at my cuffs and said, "Is she the suspect?" Mallory didn't answer right away. He looked at the door. Then he listened. The scratching returned, faint, from below the floor. One scrape, another. The sergeant heard it. His eyes narrowed, not at me, but at the house. Something in his posture shifted. "Uncuff her," he ordered. The words landed like rain on stone. Mallory fumbled the key, hands suddenly human. The cuffs opened and blood rushed back into my wrists in painful waves. The humiliation stayed, but the clock moved. "We're doing a welfare check," the sergeant said. The guard sputtered about protocol. The sergeant cut him off. "Protocol doesn't outrank a life." For once, power said something true. We climbed the steps together. The key slid into the lock like it had been waiting. The door opened too easily. My stomach dropped. Open doors don't mean welcome. They mean someone stopped caring who walks in. The smell hit first. Bleach, sharp. It's a kind used when you're trying to erase. The foyer was staged, shoes lined, lemons in a bowl, a candle unlit. Simone hated lemons. "Simone," I called. My voice bounced back hollow. The house held its breath. Then came the sound again. Lower now. Scrape, pause, scrape. I dropped to my knees and pressed my ear to the hardwood. The sound answered from beneath. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. A code I used to use when phones weren't safe. "I'm here." "Don't speak." "She's alive," I said. The sergeant stared. Mallory's face went pale. The guard, hovering in the doorway, went very quiet. We searched for seams. A baseboard near the fireplace didn't match. A vent cover was too new. A square of floor beneath a rug had no scuff marks. The house looked clean, but clean is never perfect. We rolled the rug back. A panel line appeared like a scar. No handle, no hinge. Just a tiny air hole drilled at the edge. The kind of detail a man adds when he thinks he's careful. Mallory ran to the kitchen and returned with a screwdriver and a heavy knife. The sergeant called fire rescue. I jammed the screwdriver into the seam and pried. Wood groaned, then popped. Hot, stale air rushed out like a sigh. A voice rose from the dark. "Mama." It was my daughter's voice, thin, rough, alive. My throat closed around a sob. We forced the panel up. A metal ladder descended into a concrete room. I climbed down first because a mother doesn't wait for clearance. The air below tasted like fear. Simone lay on a cot, wrists bruised, lips cracked, eyes half open. A smashed phone sat on the floor like a warning. Her nails were torn and bloody. She tried to sit, failed, and still managed to smile. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. I cupped her face, careful. "I'm here," I said. "I'm here." Her skin was hot with dehydration. Her eyes stayed sharp. "Not a panic room," she breathed. "A prison." Behind me, boots clanged down the ladder. The sergeant shone his light across the walls. Mallory stared like the room had punched him. He swallowed hard. "Who did this?" Simone's gaze flicked to mine, then back. "Grant," she said. And the man who guards the gate, Mallory's head snapped up. Above us, the guard shifted in the doorway. To still, to quiet. EMS arrived and the house erupted into motion. Oxygen, 4. Stretcher. Simone gripped my hand like it was the last sturdy thing left. As they lifted her, she whispered, "Freezer." I left proof then, barely audible. Don't let them delete me. At Northgate, doctors moved fast. They treated Simone like a colleague and a miracle. But even in that bright room, I felt the shadow of influence. A doctor pulled me aside and whispered, "Grant Harlan sits on the hospital board." The words tasted like poison. Grant, polished, smiling. The man who'd called me Ms. Brooks and offered to help with bills like charity could buy my silence. He worked in investments. He hosted galas. He shook hands with donors. And he had built a room to bury my daughter alive. Officer Mallory came to Simone's room that night with a recorder. He stood at the foot of the bed like a boy who had done wrong. "I'm sorry," he said, "for the cuffs, for doubting you." His eyes didn't flinch away this time. I looked at him. I thought about my own record, my own forced retirement, my own file stained by lies. "I don't need your guilt," I said. "I need your work." He nodded like he understood what atonement costs. We went back to the townhouse at 2 a.m. with a warrant. Crime scene tape wrapped the door like a promise. The guard booth was staffed by someone else. Curtis called in sick, the new guy muttered. Mallory's jaw clenched. Inside, forensics found what bleach couldn't. Restraint marks on the cot, fingerprints on the ladder, a tiny camera in the smoke detector. And in the freezer, taped beneath a bag of peas, Simone's note and a flash drive. Her handwriting was tight, urgent. Grant was laundering money through patient charity accounts. Hospital supplies were being bought through a shell vendor. Kickbacks hidden as donations. Simone had found the invoices. She had confronted him. At the bottom, one line broke me open. "Mama, if they say I'm unstable, it's because I said no." I folded the paper with shaking hands. Mallory read it and went still. "This is bigger than him," he murmured. "It's a network." 2 days later, Grant was found in a downtown hotel, packing. Passport on the bed. Cash stacked neat. When officers pushed him to the floor, he didn't scream. He asked for his lawyer like the world still owed him comfort. In interrogation, he tried to smooth the truth into a story. Simone was stressed, he said. She locked herself in. Mallory played the hidden camera footage. Grant's smile cracked. The trapdoor slammed on screen like a judge's gavel. Grant leaned back, eyes cold. "You can't touch me," he said. He named donors. He named attorneys. He named the people who signed police budgets. He expected the room to bow. Mallory didn't. He stared at Grant and said, "Today, I'm not asking permission." Then he stood and walked out to call the DA and the feds. I watched him go and saw the shape of a man changing. Not perfect, but awake. Court was a storm. Grant's lawyers painted Simone as hysterical. They said the note was paranoia. They asked why she hadn't left sooner. They hinted she'd been drinking. They tried to make pain look like weakness. Then they turned on me. They brought up my old internal affairs complaint. They said I had a history of misconduct. They said I was vindictive, unstable, obsessed. The same words they always choose for black women who won't be quiet. Mallory sat at the prosecution table, jaw tight. I saw him flinch with every lie, but he didn't look away. He didn't hide behind silence. That mattered. On day 4, the DA called Captain Ron Mallory, retired. Evan's father. The courtroom shifted as he took the stand. His voice was steady. "Yes," he said, "I know Loretta Brooks." The defense smiled, thinking they'd win a character fight. Then Ron said, She was the best detective we had. He looked straight at the jury, and the department forced her out because she wouldn't bury corruption. The defense went rigid. The judge leaned forward. Ron's words didn't just defend me. They exposed the system that tried to erase me. It was the reversal, clean and loud. The room had to see me as more than a uniform, more than a threat at a gate. Simone testified next. She wore a scarf to hide bruises. Her voice was calm, surgical. She explained the invoices, the shell accounts, the confrontation. Then she described waking in concrete with no phone and no light. I scratched until my nails split, she said. I counted days by the trash truck outside. I listened for my mother's car. She paused. I knew the first person they'd blame was my mother. The jury watched Grant as if he'd turned into something ugly in daylight. When the verdict came, it was swift. Guilty on kidnapping, guilty on aggravated assault, guilty on fraud. The judge denied bail. But the moral accounting didn't stop at Grant. The guard, Curtis, was arrested for tampering with logs. A wire transfer tied him to Grant's shell charity. The gated community's protocol was suddenly evidence. The gate wasn't protection. It was a delay. At sentencing, Mallory stood and asked to speak. Not as a witness, as a man who'd been wrong. He faced the court and said, "I put Ms. Brooks in cuffs while she was trying to save her child." His voice shook once, then steadied. "That was bias," he said, "and it was dangerous. I'm sorry." Then he looked at the judge and added, "I'm working to change how we respond to missing persons, especially when the family doesn't look like the neighborhood." Grant got 40 years. The judge called his actions calculated, cruel, made for profit. When Grant was led away, he finally looked scared, not of prison, but of being seen clearly. 3 months later, Simone sold the townhouse. She refused to live over a trap door. She bought a small brick house 10 minutes from mine, with a porch that faced the street like it wasn't afraid. On her first morning there, she opened every curtain. Light flooded in. My job changed too. The city offered me a paid position as a civilian investigator. Missing persons, welfare checks. Training officers to listen the first time. A role built from the work I'd always done without permission. The department reopened my old case. Internal Affairs admitted the complaint had been manufactured. My pension was a justice. Not full justice, but a door that finally moved. I cried in my kitchen, quiet, because pride doesn't know how to celebrate. On the day I reported to the precinct, I wore a simple blazer. No mop ring, no uniform to shrink me. Some officers stared. Some looked away. Evan Mallory met me at the entrance and held the door open. "This is Detective Brooks," he said to the room. "My mentor." He said it loud. He said it like a correction. And the air changed, subtle but real. A week later, at noon on Sunday, my phone rang. Simone's name lit the screen. She didn't wait for me to speak. "Tell me you ate," she said. Her voice was raspy and bright. "I ate. I lied," she laughed. That laugh was a future. It was proof that the last scratch hadn't been the end. We sat on her porch that evening, sweet tea sweating in glasses. The neighborhood kids rode bikes past, loud and unguarded. Simone leaned her head on my shoulder. "I thought you wouldn't get past the gate," she whispered. "I've been getting past gates my whole life," I told her. "Some are iron, some are paperwork. Some are people's assumptions." I kissed her hair, but none of them are stronger than a mother who keeps listening. The next day, Mallory texted me one sentence. "Training starts. The new policy is signed." I stared at the screen, then typed back to words. "Stay listening." That night, I filed one more report, not for court, for memory. I wrote Simone's name in ink that couldn't be bleached. I wrote mine beside it. 2 black women, counted, recorded, protected by law, by love and breath. Because here's the truth, They don't teach in gated streets. Silence can be staged. Fear can be dismissed. But a scratch is a soul refusing to disappear. Believe the underestimated before the last scratch fades. Always.